Hey guys, welcome back on the channel. So today's Sunday, and after this last market crash, I didn't touch any of these positions. As you may know, if you have been following my videos on this, I'm yield farming with narrow ranges, which is going to be very bad when this type of market crashes happen. A couple of them already went back up. This one just went back up as I was preparing to record the video. Launchcoin has been doing really well, the same thing with Useless. So this market crash on past Friday, it was a bit fishy, if I can call it that. I think there was definitely some manipulation to wipe out leverage positions, but when you're yield farming, you're not subjected to that. Yield farming is just the same thing as holding the tokens, but you're putting them in liquidity pools to earn yield as people go and buy and sell the tokens, right? So in the event of such a market crash as it happened on this past Friday, so this is potentially worst case scenario. Everything goes out of range. You see Launchcoin just went out of range once again. So everything is not only out of range, but also your LP's positions worth will be decreasing very, very fast. For example, this Fartcoin USDT pool is one that I opened after my last video. I deposited $50 worth of it. The position is worth 35 now, and I'm out of range. So this is worst case scenario, right? Position loses value, you're not generating fees. This is where most people panic, they withdraw liquidity and necessarily lock in permanent loss, sell the tokens at a loss. So in this case, I'm yield farming with narrow ranges. I am very much exposed to this type of market events, but since I thought it was manipulated, I didn't even touch one of these positions. I let them sit. You gotta take a breather when market events like this happen. I think it's much better to act fast to take profits when the markets are hot. That's just my personal take. And also, as you can see, most of these positions are worth $100 or less, even if they would be in range. So most of them are $50, some of them are $100, some of them are more than $100. But all of this put together, they are not money that I will lose my sleep over it. And I think that's a crucial factor in crypto. And I'm doing this video series not only to show you the potential of yield farming with tight ranges, but also the downside of it. So this is the downside. This is actually not worst case scenario because I have been yield farming for more than 2 months, probably at around the 3 months mark. I started with $200. At some point I added some more liquidity because it was going really well, but I did not deposit more than $250 into these pools. All of the positions you see here, or most of them right now, are just the yield that I took over the time, and I opened new positions. I also opened other pools in other blockchains to de-risk, and you can see that de-risking is already paying off in the case of Useless and Launchcoin, because had I had my liquidity only in one position, for example in Pump, I would be out of range. Yeah, I could argue that if I would have all of my liquidity in Pump, my ranges would be wider, yeah, but you get the idea, right? De-risk, have your exposure through multiple assets, and although these are just altcoins, they are not random memes. Potentially the riskier ones are actually Launchcoin and Useless. They are the more recent ones on the Solana ecosystem, and surprisingly enough to me, they are the ones which are already back in range. Actually, Cards is even more recent than them, but Cards is one that I am planning to hold for the long term. So if I put all of this liquidity together, so let me pull up the calculator and sum the positions. All right, so 38 plus 91 plus 40. I have some more pools down here. Okay, plus 40 plus 8 plus 77 plus 50 plus 34, $338 worth of liquidity. I started with 250, so let me subtract that. I'm still $88 up from my initial. It's a matter of timing, guys. Had I deployed this liquidity, this $250 in the last week, I would still be down for sure. But the fact is that I am yield farming this for the past 3 months roughly, so I did have enough time for me to build up the positions, and even in the worst case scenario that I decided to withdraw all of this liquidity, I would still be up from my initial. But the whole point of this video is to show you as a video series. I tend to do these updates at least once a week, but whenever there are these events, I want to show you what you can expect. So this is not worst case scenario. Worst case scenario would be if I would have all of this put together to be worth less than my initial. But luckily that's not the case. So I'm gonna wait it out to see for this next week how the market will perform. If I don't go back into range in some of these, what I'm going to do is potentially I can redeploy liquidity. So I'll have to see how the price is behaving, and potentially I can lock in some impermanent loss. Yeah, but let's see how the market recovers. It's good to see that Launchcoin is already back in range. The same thing with Useless. Actually, Solana did behave really well. So let me go here on CoinGecko to see Solana's price. It's already over $190, I think. So yeah, 193. It's bouncing back really nicely. Ethereum is also already over $4,000 once again. The same thing with Bitcoin, over $1,000. So the market is bouncing back up really nicely. This was just manipulated, guys. I believe this event was just to wipe out leverage. And let me just make the whole point. Like I said in the beginning, when you are providing liquidity, you are not leveraging yourself unless you are using some sort of protocol to borrow against your LP position. In that case, yeah, you are using leverage that can wipe you out. Although leverage can be very powerful, I think it's too risky, and I tend not to use things like DeFi Tuna to earn bigger yields by borrowing money. I do a different thing. I can use those borrowing lending markets. For example, I can go on Jupe, which recently launched their lending, Jupiter Land, and I can deploy here some stables, borrow against them. That allows me to earn some APY on my deposit. So personally, in my case, I much rather do that than using stuff like DeFi Tuna, but that's just me. But overall, guys, this is what you can expect with the market crashes hitting your LP positions when you're operating with very narrow ranges. It could have definitely been worse, especially if the market didn't bounce back up, but that is why I'm doing this video, to show you the potential risks. Yes, also the rewards. You can earn quite a lot. You can earn 20% in a given week with these very narrow ranges, but know the risks, and that's also the main point of this week's video. So the pending yield this week was not the best. I think I got 10%, 15% this week. So let's see how this next week goes. What I could do if I want to redeploy some liquidity, for example, I'm going to use Fartcoin as an example, because Fartcoin I started with 50 and now it's worth, at some point it was worth 50% less. You see it went down to 30 cents and I entered at around 60. So let me go back here actually. So my downside is 60 and 68 is my upside. Hopefully it will bounce back up in the following days. Let's see. But what I could potentially do is set new ranges. So let me draw in actually my current ranges, which were 68, and then the other one was 59, roughly 60. So something like this, right? So I was yield farming in this range. If you want to redeploy your liquidity and don't lock in impermanent loss, this is what you can do. So in this case, I'm rebalancing from 60 to 35. So the difference is 25 cents, right? So if I do that, on the upside, I also want to add 25 cents. So whatever you rebalance on the upside, do the same thing on the downside and vice versa. You will be back into range generating fees. The bad of it, or the con, is that your APR is going to be much more diluted. And with such a wide range, $50, they're not going to yield all that much. So that's something you have to decide for yourself, considering how much you have deposited. But this is something you can do as a response to this sort of crashes. Of course, it's always going to be a gamble, because can the price sustain this level or bounce back up? That's optimally what we want. But of course, you know how crypto is, and the price can keep going down. So that's a potential issue. And if that happens, you can keep on repeating this, but it's going to dilute your APRs even further. But on the pro side also, imagine if from here on Fartcoin just starts to going like this, you are going to earn a lot in fees, and also you will be able to ride all of this wave up to almost $1 or whatever upside range you want to deploy for yourself. But potentially this is something that you could do. Okay, I will let all of these positions sit for this coming week to see how it will play out. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, guys. The whole point of doing these videos is to show you pros and cons, the risks and rewards of using narrow ranges to yield farm. Like I said, I'm pretty much still up because I've been yield farming for the past few months, and I've been constantly compounding, opening new positions, de-risking. So guys, I hope you took value from the video. If you enjoyed this type of content, you know the drill. Like and subscribe for more. Thank you for watching. Take care. Keep exploring crypto. I'll see you on the next one.